Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. So excited to be here with you tonight. I see Cash, one of our favorite guests, already filling up the chat here, which I'm super excited about. And Cash is also trying to pre-guess my opening question, which I so appreciate. So yes, we're going to get into that in just a second. But just really excited to be here with everyone tonight for our Faith and OCD Roundtable, where we're going to be talking about the fact that faith and OCD treatment are not mutually exclusive and can actually work together in some really beautiful, awesome ways. But before we jump in, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to come in and sit down and get settled with us. So as folks come in, feel free to say hello in the chat and where you're from. And I know Cash was trying to guess my question of the night. He was not quite on point. The question is actually, what is your favorite candy? Especially coming off of Valentine's Day, whether it's Valentine's Day candy, anti-Valentine's Day candy, whatever it is, favorite candy. And while folks are answering this in the chat, would love to throw it out to our panelists here. Favorite candy, anybody?
Okay, so Justin Hughes. I'm a sucker for most things chocolate, I have to admit. So classic, just kind of American chocolate. Oh, I mean, Reese's peanut butter cups are pretty impressive. I love Snickers, but I recently went to Germany. Ooh, next level. And you can get some of those things here too, Lindt brand, major brands and so forth. But I would say I don't know if it's pronounced Ritter Sport, but Ritter Sport. It's a mint chocolate. Outstanding.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Justin, for getting us started. And now I'm officially hungry. So thank you also for that. Mubina or Johanna? Yeah, Johanna, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I was thinking, because there's lots of sweets that I love. I think my favorite is these pretzels, like chocolate covered pretzels, but like dark chocolate specifically, because I just love the sweet and salty thing. Too much sweet sometimes is too much for me. But there's the specific brand that's like the flat pretzel things that you get at the store, but there's ones at Costco that are chocolate covered and they're really good. It's my favorite.
Yes. That sounds, we're also big chocolate covered pretzel people in our house. So that is all. And I will have to try the Costco flat ones. That also sounds very good. Muvina, any favorite candies?
Yeah, I feel like the odd man out. I do not love chocolate. There's a picture of me when I was about 5 that my cousin loves to show me. And I'm in front of a chocolate cake and I'm making a disgusted face. So I'm not a chocolate person. I do love a Costco buy though. My pick is Sour Patch Kids. All my girlfriends know that. Ooh. They get them for me. It's just
excellent choice.
They're sweet, they're sour.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Muvina. Cash, the questions are not too vague. I feel like what's your favorite candy is a very specific question. But I appreciate all of the folks plugging in here, from European chocolate to Reese's to strawberry cheesecake to Snickers. So we are all official Reese's cups. So we are all officially hungry. I will say, Mubina, I'm kind of with you. I like chocolate now. Growing up, I actually had a childhood allergy to chocolate. So I was allergic to chocolate my whole childhood, which I actually thought was kind of cool, because every birthday party I went to, I got my own special little like cake. They would always give me a special like Katie dessert. So I always felt really special. So I don't know. I always thought that was kind of cool. But we are going to jump in with things that are not desserts now. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for getting settled with us. And excited to be here with y'all tonight. So as we jump in, we want to note that this live stream is educational and is not a replacement for therapy. If you have treatment-related questions, please consult a provider or visit the IOCDF resource directory at iocdf.org/find-help to locate a trained clinician near you. Literally one of the best possible resources if y'all haven't used it yet. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or feeling suicidal or unsafe, please call the 988 Suicide in Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or visit 988lifeline.org. You can go to your local emergency room or you can call 911. We're here to create a safe and respectful space We want to be kind. We want to support absolutely everyone in the chat, and also for folks who are watching later on and commenting. And do want to note that this event is being broadcast across several social media platforms and is also being recorded. So please keep that in mind as you ask questions and as you plug in with one another, noting that just by being here tonight, you're advocating. And we want to show up in a way that is respectful and loving and kind to all of the other folks that you're advocating alongside. So as we jump in tonight, I want to start by introducing our amazing panelists here. So first, we have Mubina Mirza, who is a licensed clinical social worker trained in the treatment of OCD at the UCLA OCD Intensive Outpatient Program. She is certified in cognitive behavioral therapy and incorporates mindfulness-based practices, including acceptance and commitment therapy, into treatment. And as an active member of the IOCDF Faith and OCD Action Council, she advocates for OCD awareness in the Muslim community. She's based in Redondo Beach, California, and is dedicated to breaking stigma and providing culturally confident care. So, Mubina, thank you for all that you do, and excited to jump in tonight. We also have Justin Hughes with us tonight. And Justin is an OCD and anxiety specialist passionate about helping those impacted by OCD. He also serves on the IOCDF's Faith and OCD Action Council and is the Dallas ambassador for OCD Texas. He's dual trained in psychology and theology, and he works with a diverse population and frequently speaks on the intersection of OCD and Christian faith. His work emphasizes evidence-based treatment while respecting individual faith traditions. So welcome, Justin, and excited to jump in.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. And then finally, we have Johanna Wood. Dr. Wood provides clinical supervision and training to therapists and behavior specialists in her unit. Her primary clinical interests include OCD, anxiety disorders, safety risk management, depression, and complex and severe clinical presentations. She received her doctorate in clinical psychology at Northern Illinois University and completed her APA accredited doctoral internship at Rogers in the OCD and anxiety adult residential care program. She's passionate about evidence-based treatment, emphasizes cultural sensitivity and inclusivity in her work, and has a special interest in scrupulosity and the distinction between OCD and healthy religious practice. So Johanna, so excited to have you here with us tonight on your first IOCDF stream.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And for anybody watching who I don't know, I'm Reverend Katie O'Dunn, but super informal. Please feel free to call me Katie. I just like folks to know that you can, in fact, be an ordained minister and interfaith chaplain and have OCD. I lead a faith, OCD, and scrupulosity community called Stick with the Ick. And I'm also, like these amazing humans here, really honored to be a part of and to lead the IOCDF's Faith and OCD Action Council with literally all of our amazing panelists here today. Many of us have been working together for years. So this is just super wonderful, and we're excited to kind of jump in here. So I want to start, general question, and I always start with this. I want to start with what is religious scrupulosity. And if folks have been on these with me before, you might be saying, oh, why are we starting with this all over again? And I want you to know, please, if you're watching later, don't fast forward through this. I think every time we talk about it, it's so important, and everyone describes it in a slightly different way that might resonate with you. So I want to first go over to Justin. I'm going to have all of our panelists here describe it just a little bit about what is religious scrupulosity? Why are we even talking about this? So go ahead, Justin. No pressure.
No, thanks for starting. I love to talk about this, and the clarity is so crucial here. So scrupulosity we use to refer now to OCD. It's OCD, it's OCD, it's OCD, it's OCD. Originally, the word scruple applied very broadly and still can apply broadly, but scrupulosity specifically, we're referring to a specific subtype of OCD. Religious, spiritual, and or moral themes. So it may not necessarily pertain to a specific worldview or religion, but it can be just that general sense of right or wrong, or is this something that I should do to better my life, etc. And if we look at the OCD cycle, at least from a traditional cognitive behavioral therapy perspective, we're going to recognize that there are intrusions, these unwanted, recurrent, persistent, distressing thoughts, urges, impulses that causes distress. They're interpreted as threatening, And then there are compulsions and or rituals to minimize or to seek relief. But that relief actually feeds right back into the cycle. Instead of being free, the person gets more entangled in it. So scrupulosity, simply put, is focused on topics of a religious, spiritual, or moral nature.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Justin. And again, just love kind of diving in and having folks hear what this is. And Mubina or Johanna, would y'all like to jump in and add anything to that, or just describe how you might typically share that with patients?
Yeah,
Y'all are like, this is he like totally encompassed everything, which I so know, but I love folks to hear from different lenses. Like, what is this? So yeah, go ahead, Mubina. Again, no pressure.
It's always hard to follow up Justin but yeah, just to reiterate what he says, OCD is thematic. It usually latches onto a theme, one or more themes, and this is a theme of OCD that it can latch onto. And OCD sometimes will latch onto a theme that you actually care about, whether it's harm OCD, it's latching onto people that you care about, or in this situation, it's latching onto your faith, your belief, your practice. So it latches onto intrusive thoughts around religion, and then it has you engage in compulsions to find certainty around faith, belief, and practice.
Thank you, Mubina. Beautiful. And I'll go off of that to go over to Johanna. Johanna, I'll ask you a little bit differently so that we're not just adding to these great answers, but this is really what you're passionate about in your work. So how does OCD sometimes hijack faith as something that's really important to us? And why is it important to differentiate between OCD and healthy religious practice?
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, I don't know if I can add much to that. But yeah, so like Mubina was saying, OCD attacks the things that it can get you to care about. I kind of anthropomorphize OCD a little bit sometimes. So it will, whatever it can get you afraid of is what it will take. And so for a lot of us, that is our religion, or just our wanting to be a good person, even more generally. And so what it does is for things that were or are meant to be ways of moving towards our faith, ways of moving towards something that we want, living out our values, things like that, it starts to twist it, and it starts to become not about moving towards something, but about moving away from something. And so we start to be moving away from this fear that we're a bad person, fear that God won't accept us, fear that we're doing the things wrong. And so we start to use these aspects of our religious practice that were something that were getting us closer to our faith and closer to God. Now it's just in service of getting rid of our anxiety, and it becomes just really unhealthy, and it can even get to the point, right, where we're not engaging with our faith or our religion at all, right? There's a lot of us who we become so afraid we don't want to go to our services anymore because it's so triggering just to be in that community or in that space. So in that way, very much, we're not really living out those values anymore. So that's where I would go with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that Justin literally just quoted you in the chat, which I was going to come back to because I love this. It becomes more about moving away from something instead of towards something. And our faith is supposed to be about moving towards something beautiful, our relationship with the divine. And OCD, we know in all of its forms, kind of twists our values. It makes us feel like we're protecting our values when in reality, we're moving away from everything we care about, whether that's our students or our kids or our faith or anything else. And this is such a great example where to an extreme, it can almost be like someone's worshiping OCD and not God and no longer engaging in their faith at all. And it's such a tough thing. I feel like Justin wants to say something, so I'm going to go over to Justin.
Oh no, I was just experiencing guilt over typing in his name wrong. So that was all. But that was an excellent quote. It becomes more about what's that?
The moral scrupulosity, Justin. You're gonna have to sit with, what does this mean about you as a person? Getting her name wrong.
I'm gonna just mute. I'm just gonna sit with it.
So I love. Well, Justin, I wanna stick with you actually with this for a second. So along this topic, and I know we always come back to this at the beginning of these streams too, but I think it's so important. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about treatment, because I especially want folks to know. And for some reason, I guess it's only Tuesday, but this has been a week that I've received so many emails from families navigating scrupulosity with a child or a loved one who say, well, I really don't think it's possible for them to come out of this or get better, or what does treatment even look like? Is that even possible for scrupulosity in the way that it's possible for other subtypes of OCD? So first of all, I want folks to hear, yes, there is so much hope. But Justin, can you talk about treatment for that just a little bit?
Absolutely. And first of all, it really is about the story. It's about the person's personal connection. Nobody cares squat about what I'm going to say if it doesn't connect, if it doesn't mean something. And many folks on here tonight are here to be a part of the community or contribute to the community, understand a lot of these things. But a lot of times, and even after the fact too, there's a lot of folks that pick up these recordings that have been suffering and through the ringer, so to speak, of difficulty. And at the end of the day, I want to start with the end product, which is hope and recovery. That's possible. I was just talking about this earlier today with a client that one of the master clinicians, one of the expert clinicians, when I was at the International OCD conference, annual conference years back, and I was more of a junior clinician specializing in OCD, said that people who stick with it get at least some improvement. You got to stick with it. You got to stay with it. That they had never seen somebody who really stayed with looking for options and looking for hope that didn't get some improvement. And it sometimes means changing or trying something different or even a different treatment, and that's okay. But let me back up to the totally other side, which is the beginning of it, that there's been a lot of suffering, and it's not to make it dramatic, but literal loss of life at the hands of OCD. And not having it treated, and people dying by suicide, lifespan being shortened for other reasons. And so I take it very seriously as a person who's, yes, a clinician and an advocate, as a person who does this for my living, and I get paid for this stuff, but I also have some of my closest friends who have OCD as well. And so I take it really, really seriously. There's a lot of things that we've tried, that we've studied, and a lot of things that we know really clearly don't work because we've tried it for so many years and decades, and actually with some things, centuries. And the thing is, where we are today, we have really effective treatment for most people. What is that? Well, it's going to be two, one in the medication realm, one in the therapy realm. I'll start with medication. First and foremost, it's SRI medications, usually SSRIs, but there's one that's a little bit older. And oftentimes double the dosing of what people would take with generalized anxiety or depression. To be at effective dosing, obviously consult your physician on that, but it's usually pretty straightforward for a lot of people. 40 to 60% of people get about 30 to 40% improvements. And then that's just with the initial SSRIs. There's other medications adding on an SSRI, trials, ... I won't get in the weeds with my nerddom, unless if you want me to, and then let's go, but I'll keep going. And then on the therapy side of things, with cognitive behavioral therapy, we have found it to be the most effective with randomized controlled trials, many over many years, supporting its effectiveness, its tolerability, its use. Durability, we could say, leaves something to be wanted, but not compared to other therapies. It's actually second largest I'm getting in the weeds. Okay, so simply put, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Your passion.
But I'll back up. Cognitive behavioral therapy, but especially with exposure and response prevention, it became the game changer that changed the outcomes. It changed the odds. It's not saying that there are not other approaches. It's not saying that you're wrong for doing other approaches. I know a lot of people that have tried other approaches, but this is the most important part to me on the advocacy side, is that we look at the hills that have already been died on and we say, okay, this is what we've learned. This is where we are now. If we have a reason to do something different, no problem. But I'm going to be a bulldog for that all day long. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. And thank you for bringing up both the medication side and the cognitive behavioral side and the significance of folks getting effective treatment. And also just acknowledging the human side of even these live streams and folks needing to hear that there is so much hope. I had an interesting experience this week, and I got an email from someone about a live stream that I had done for the IOCDF 5 years ago that said had absolutely let them know that there was still hope and that they could get through this. And it's so interesting that, and I remember looking at those kind of in my own journey. So we're hoping that this is hopeful to anybody who's watching it now or later on, to know that you can get treatment and you can step forward. Mubina, I'd love to go over to you, and specifically as we think about things like exposure and response prevention as kind of under that umbrella of cognitive behavioral therapy, of what does this look like in scrupulosity? And this is kind of going to transition us into faith and OCD not being mutually exclusive, because I think there's a lot of fear around this. When we think about exposure-based therapies, the biggest question I get is, well, what if I'm asked to do something that opposes my faith? And is this going to go against my faith? And what does that look like? And I'd love to start with just, well, what does ERP even look like in the realm of scrupulosity?
Right. So as Justin said, ERP is the gold standard therapy for OCD. And what it involves is exposing somebody to something that they fear, and helping them to resist compulsions that would feed into an OCD cycle. And when we do this over and over again, we learn a couple of things. We learn that, hey, the feared outcome probably doesn't happen, or didn't happen. And we also learn to tolerate discomfort. You hear us joking about discomfort. It's a real thing, and humans generally don't enjoy feeling it, but we learn to tolerate feeling that way. So that's what exposure and response prevention is. And we can use exposure and response prevention with any form of OCD, any theme of OCD, including scrupulosity. So for a person experiencing religious theme OCD, they might do an exposure where they identify something that they typically feel anxious around, and they expose themselves to that thing, and then they focus on the response prevention. So a lot of people will come to this if they care about their religion, and they might ask themselves, well, how do I do this without violating my religious beliefs or doctrine or law? And that's where cultural sensitivity comes into play. You do not have to go against your religious beliefs to do exposure and response prevention. You can do values-based exposures that fall within your religious teaching to expose yourself to the feared stimuli. And hopefully a therapist, if you're working with a therapist, should be able to do this, or hopefully trained in being culturally sensitive. And if you're questioning if your therapist is culturally sensitive or not, have that conversation or look elsewhere, to be quite honest. So I'll give you an example from the Muslim tradition, if that's okay. We're coming up on Ramadan. We're less than 2 weeks away from Ramadan, and this is a time of heightened anxiety for a lot of Muslims out there. They might feel anxious around their fast. So we're required to fast from sunrise to sunset, no food, no drink, not even water throughout the day. And so Muslims who have OCD in Ramadan might get intrusive thoughts around, did I accidentally ingest some water when I'm making wudu or I'm taking a shower? So maybe some water got in, and now I might be responsible for that, and I broke my fast. So an exposure might look like, go ahead and take a shower, very values-based, take a shower, that's your normal routine. And then you're just going to focus on response prevention. You're going to focus on not wiping the water away or making extra prayers for forgiveness and things like that. So that's an example of, you don't have to break your religious doctrine. You could just function as you would without OCD and cut out the compulsions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mubina. And I'm so glad. I was actually hoping that you would bring up Ramadan, because it's so soon, and this is such a beautiful time for so many. And as we've already talked about tonight, OCD latches on to the things that are the most important to us. So especially at this holy time of year, OCD is going to come in and make folks question, am I engaging correctly? Am I fasting fully? All of these things. And what you just named is such a great example of asking someone to do something that's value-based. And no, it's not opposing faith. You're asking them to take a shower, which they would be doing, and continuing to engage. So thank you for that. And I would love to then go to Johanna, and Johanna, in general with either ERP or treatment, I wonder if you've heard any misconceptions come up either from folks that you've been working with or other spaces about faith and OCD treatment being incompatible, or have you had people come to work with you that have said, well, what if this opposes my faith? And how do you respond to that? How do you navigate some of those conversations?
Yeah. So I really think that faith and ERP are more than compatible. I mean, I know folks, and I'm kind of coming to this too, who think of ERP almost as a spiritual practice, a practice of faith, right?
That was the title of my doctoral work. ERP is a spiritual practice, smoothing the stone. Yeah.
Incredible. Yes.
Yeah.
So the thing about ERP, and this applies not just for scrupulosity, but for like all themes, right? ERP is a leap of faith because OCD wants certainty, right? And if we have true certainty about something, we don't need faith, right? You don't need faith if you're 100% they're like can't go together. So ERP is about understanding that we don't have certainty around whatever it is, and that we're going to move forward anyway. We're taking that leap of faith that, whatever it is, like maybe in your religion, right? So maybe it's a leap of faith that God knows my heart, and that, and that I'm going to stop doing my compulsions and trust, right? And have faith that he knows that, or she or they or whoever. And same with think about relationship OCD. Huge leap of faith, right? Making any commitment, that kind of thing. That's a huge leap of faith. Same with contamination OCD. It is a leap of faith to touch that doorknob and trust that you probably won't die, and not knowing for certain, whether that's going to be the case. So I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I have to challenge this. I'm going to have to what? You're asking me to not pray. I'm like, okay, well, what is your prayer actually doing for your faith right now? So we get into that conversation. Like I said earlier, we moving towards something, moving away from something. So that, again, we can get back to prayer in a healthy way, in a way that is moving you towards something. And we're going to really practice that leap of faith. So just continuing to go back to that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought up the leap of faith component. And folks who have heard me on these for a while know this is like my favorite thing to talk about, because I think it's so beautiful. And it really is. I mean, in the simplest form, if we are describing a spiritual practice as something that's challenging, that connects us more deeply with the divine, then treatment kind of fits that bill, right? We're leaning into something. We're taking a leap of faith. We're doing something really hard. And ultimately, to go back to Johanna, what you were saying, we're moving back toward God instead of away from God and toward OCD. And again and again and again, I've worked with so many people across different traditions that they don't come out of treatment, you know, less faithful or less connected. It's actually that they're closer to God, but in a way that's actually authentic to them and to their faith, and not based on everything that OCD was dictating. And what a gift. I mean, that's such a gift.
Yeah. Just one other thing too. I mean, I worked with somebody that kind of pulled this example that I like to use sometimes. They were developing some insight on this, and they said, you know, it's like putting in prayer tokens to like a machine and like getting out reassurance. Like that's what my prayer life has become. So they're developing that insight. Like, this isn't about my relationship with God. This isn't about, you know, engaging in my faith. It's about like getting out that reassurance. And so we don't want that for you. Like, what we want is for you to be engaging in a way that actually brings you life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what I know folks here on these IOCDF live streams a lot, especially from Liz Mackingvale on a lot of the Wednesday streams, about what's the function? What's the function of the behavior that you're engaging in? And it's the same with faith. What is the function of that prayer in this moment? Is it because you want to connect with God, or because we feel like we have to get it just right so that something bad doesn't happen? And those functions are really different. I'd like to shift over to Justin, kind of continue with this question, because I think we all navigate this in our work. Have you had spaces where folks have been nervous that faith and OCD treatment are incompatible? And how do you respond to that?
Every day. Every day in my practice.
You're like on my entire inbox and like all of everybody I work with, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I've grown to really appreciate it. At first, it was easier for me in my thoughts to think, well, okay, so especially with scrupulosity or with OCD, of course, there's concerns of this, but I have a lot of appreciation for two sides to it. So one is that, yeah, OCD is going to attach to these things, but additionally, it's important to ask, even just from a culturally sensitive standpoint, will a provider, or even if it's not counseling, it might even just be in any sort of support or advocacy, do they get it? Do they understand how important this is to me, what this looks like? And most people pigeonhole faith and OCD into scrupulosity. It happens regularly. I can't tell you how many times in some of my resources recently, we've been talking about like my online course, et cetera, or book that I'm working on. And people are like, oh, great. Yeah, that'll be an excellent resource for scrupulosity. And my default is being a people pleaser. I work on that and my own fear hierarchy. And I've started to speak up a little bit more to be like, actually, scrupulosity is like just a little bit. In fact, my book, it's throughout, but it's a chapter because of this bigger picture. And so the questions come up regularly, frequently, almost every single day. There's really good questions. There's real day-to-day life questions. There are, of course, compulsive questions. And to just really be with the person, to slow down and to appreciate that, I think is really, really crucial. One that I was thinking of, just to be more recent and also offer something that I may not always say each time. A lot of people recently have been asking about becoming overly desensitized. It's a common question. I get it probably every month, but for whatever reason, I've had that question come up a lot in the last week or so. Will I become desensitized through these exposures? And oftentimes people get nervous about some sort of desensitization towards doing something wrong, or giving faith practice up, or discipline up, or I suppose the popular word right now is deconstructing, for example. And some folks, and definitely in the population that I work with, can get increasingly nervous if they see interfaith collaboration, like, I need to have you stay in a very narrow lane. And I'm not saying that there aren't things that I believe that are black and white. There are absolutes that I believe. There's fill in the blank, and I work with a lot of clients that is true. But when it comes back at the end of the day, it's so cool because we can be unified on a couple of things. Well, I think a lot more than two things, but definitely two things, which is the nature of the problem, which is the same. And then also the nature of the solutions, which largely is the same, though done in a sensitive, understanding, appreciating where a person's coming from, what they believe. When those things are done, that's what it's about, which is really, really neat how this works together so well. And at the end of the day, OCD is OCD, and the solutions are there, and we can tag team these and high five people with very different perspectives and views. And so back to that desensitization question, a lot of people ask it like, oh my goodness, if I say this enough, if I sit with this, if I look at the script, if I start watching a few movies that I've been avoiding, like, is it going to desensitize me to, well, whatever their fear is, deconstruct, etc. Well, that is always going to be the nature of the fear. And when people hear things like exposure and some of the building blocks that it's based on of systematic desensitization, it's easy to link that with catastrophic fears. But in practice, that's not usually what happens. People do change their views, but that's just like any other person on the face of this planet. Most of the time, people, and it's hard to do this on a live stream without knowing if people are getting reassurance from this comment, but I'll say it broadly. Most of the time, people are ending up exactly where they started out from a big picture perspective. When we strip down all these extra little things that are the fear, the add-ons, etc., what's left is A, the person's actual values, or B, the actual things that they would be working on, exploring, questioning anyway, just without the mess of OCD.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Justin, for all of that. And I want to go back and say also thank you for highlighting that it isn't just about scrupulosity in these conversations. And it's so interesting because I deeply resonate with that. And for folks who have heard my story, I have OCD. Religious scrupulosity was not really a part of my experience. I struggled deeply with harm OCD, with false memory OCD, with moral scrupulosity. I mean, I spent years calling the police on myself at night, worried that I had somehow killed people and forgot about it. I mean, it was awful. And then when I got into the reason I started to get into this work was because I cared so deeply about my students of different faith backgrounds who are navigating their own mental health struggles, and wanted to talk about the fact that we can have these conversations in different faith communities, and that you can actually get help and for OCD, regardless of the theme. But sometimes I often feel a lot of the work I do is around scrupulosity because people expect that from me because I'm a minister. But I think it goes so far beyond that. And I think fears around treatment for people, can relate to faith without them having scrupulosity. There's so many different layers. But I love the question also that you brought up that you've been getting a lot lately, because that's also a question that I've been getting. And I love that you highlighted the commonality across different traditions and perspectives of people experiencing that. And that's also one of the things that I've seen recently. I run a lot of groups, and some are affinity groups based on faith tradition, and some are really kind of mixed together. In one group that I run with all sorts of folks from different backgrounds, we actually were talking about this and the fear of getting desensitized. And someone's like, wait, they're worried about that too? Wait, but I'm Christian and they're Jewish and they're Muslim, and we all worry about that exact same thing. And I think there was some recognition in that of, whoa, we believe some different things. And this is what OCD does. It's not about my faith. This is kind of how OCD does its thing.
It's a human thing. Yeah.
Human thing. 1000%. So I'd love to go over to Mubina. And Mubina, where has this come up for you, especially in the Muslim community? Are there fears that you see around engaging in treatment? And does this oppose my faith? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think what I want to do to explain how this can latch on to any faith is that we could use the metaphor of OCD as a bully. to understand why OCD does this and how it gets you to pay attention to it. So OCD, we can view it as a giant bully that's kind of like stomping around the playground. Not the smartest bully, but it's really got some feelings that it wants you to pay attention to. Okay.
Maybe not the smartest, but the loudest, right?
The smartest, the loudest, the smelliest, the biggest, right? And it will do a lot of things to get you to pay attention. It'll stomp, it'll shout, it'll yell. One of the things it will do is it will give you a heightened sense of responsibility. You really, really need to pay attention to me. And if you don't, something bad and catastrophic is going to happen. And when we're talking about scrupulosity, that catastrophic thing that it wants you to pay attention to is you might lose your faith, you might lose your religion, you might step away from your faith. Your faith might diminish. You might not really be that good of a Christian, Muslim, Christian, Jewish person, whatever the thing is, you're not going to be so good at it. So if you're really good at what you do, you have to pay attention to me. So we know its tricks. And just like the bully on the playground, the best way to deal with it is not to engage with it and try to logic your way out of it or to give it any sort of attention. The best way to deal with it is to say, thanks for that lovely information. Okay, great. Oh, well, so what? I'm going to turn away and I'm going to pay attention to those things that are actually important to me. Right. And when you do that, and I've seen it time and time again with my folks who are afraid that they'll become less of whatever religion they follow, is that now they've cleared up a bit and they're actually practicing in a meaningful way and they're connecting to the religion. I can't tell you how many times tears come to my eyes when I hear that, you know what? I actually did my 5 prayers yesterday because I didn't spend 4 hours doing one prayer. Right. Things like that start to happen. So trust the process, ignore the bully.
That's good.
It's so good, right? Trust the process, ignore the bully. And I love us thinking about it as a bully on the playground or anywhere else. And moving it, even what you're highlighting is this non-engagement response piece and how we respond to it, that we can respond in so many. And I love IOCDF has a great article by Dr. Lisa Levine on non-engagement responses and some of the work that she's done around that. And the ways that we respond to it really making a difference of being able to say, okay, maybe, or well, thanks for that thought. Super helpful. And I'll say, I mean, my favorite in my own personal life, and we all respond in different ways, is sarcasm. And yeah, I know, Cash, like you're saying in the chat, easier said than done all day long, super hard. And also, I think there's power in us making the kind of choice to respond to it without responding. And and Bridget, it isn't the stuff that OCD throws at us isn't funny. It's like, it's terrifying. And I so get that. I mean, I spent years thinking I was this awful person who deserved to be in jail. And humor and responding, whether it's humor or responding with a non-engagement response or choosing to not engage, takes back power. I always think this is such a weird thing for a chaplain to bring up, but I think about this a lot. Do y'all know the last scene of the movie 8 Mile? Does anybody know what I'm talking about on here? Nope. Okay. Well, if anybody in the chat knows.
I'm a spiritual person. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm messing with you. I got to go see it now.
Okay. So if anyone has the desire to go back and watch the last scene of 8 Mile, which I'm now going to have to do something on Instagram about, but Eminem in this final rap battle, they do these rap battles where they kind of knock each other down. And in the final rap battle, he ends up saying all of these things about himself instead and drops the mic, and the bully has nothing left to say. The rap scene where the guy disses himself. Yeah. And I have seen that. Like, literally the Eminem movie. Thank y'all. I'm so glad that people in the chat know what I'm talking about. Katie, you're a reverend. You should not be watching such things. Yes. I'm sorry for anyone who's offended by this, but I literally think that's the attitude. That's the attitude I try to get in my mind when I'm responding to my OCD. So y'all are getting let in a little bit too much in my own OCD life. But when my OCD is really loud, I literally like to stand up and pretend that I am in that rap battle. And I'm like, sure, I am all of those things, and drop the mic. And OCD has nothing else left to say. And
I love that.
Love that.
Years ago,
go ahead, Justin.
I had no idea the years, and my mom didn't realize this years ago, but she taught me diffusion when I was young. I think I was probably like 3rd or 4th grade. Some kids were making fun of me. She basically is like, just agree with them. Just nod and smile. And I can do that. I can play dumb for sure. And what's interesting is from what I recall, they became like my friends that year, which is so funny. Little did I realize the social card of diffusion, like, okay, yeah. They're like, hey, what's up, Huggies? What's up, Preppy? Because my parents would dress me. I'm in stinking 4th grade, so I'm wearing like a sweater and bow tie or whatever. And yeah, I was preppy, but they made fun of it, and so I'm like, thanks. And then they're my friends by the end of the year. Pretty cool in OCD. It's so similar, except you might not be friends.
I love that. It's such a great example, though, right? It's kind of the same thing. And your mom had no idea that she was laying the foundation for your work as a therapist and cognitive diffusion and just your whole future.
That's right.
I love that. Moving on, I know you had something.
Yeah, little Justin with a bow tie, so cute. I just want to say, like, when you both were talking, what was coming to mind is different things work for different people. So when you hear these techniques, find what resonates with you. And Katie mentioned also the shoulders back technique. So when you hear the OCD showing up, you can also just take that stance. All right, OCD, you're here. I know exactly what to do. I'm going to do something hard today. So if humor doesn't feel right, or dismissing your OCD as a silly little bully on the playground or silly big bully, square your shoulders back and say, I'm going to do something hard today. And different things work for different people at different times. So have many, many tools in your toolbox.
Absolutely. We're all different, right? And that's what makes this community so beautiful. And we get to respond to OCD in different ways that work for us while continuing to not engage with it. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And we get to learn from each other. I'm going to make sure that we have in the chat in just a second the Lisa Levine article too on non-engagement responses, because I think that that's really helpful to recognize that, there are so many different ways that we can respond and choose to not respond. So thank you all so much for talking with us through this and for being with us through this. I would love for us just in these kind of last few minutes to loop back to, well, why is it important to have these conversations in faith spaces? Why is it important to have these dialogues around faith and mental health treatment? And this may be a big question, but if there's something that you would like to share with therapists or with faith leaders around the significance of faith and OCD treatment working together, what would that be? What would you like to share tonight on that topic? And I'll throw it out to the whole group. Anybody who wants to jump in here, you're more than welcome to.
I think largely, first of all, back to the humanity piece, like, the humanity. We're people, and with all the intricacies and nuances. And so, of course, that's going to bump into values, faith, spirituality, etc. And so that back to the piece of it, when we talk about it from an OCD standpoint, it's not just scrupulosity. Then from a human standpoint, it's not necessarily just one specific discipline at one specific time or one specific prayer at one specific time. It's that bigger picture of being a person, being human, and to actually get with people, to know people, to walk with people. I think we just have to go here. And I think it's just that simple. And so in the particulars, that, of course, is going to involve, in the lens of working with OCD, some of those nuances and specifics. And there are some ways to get it very, very right, some ways to get it very, very wrong, everything in between. And then there is nuance in the very, very right, in the sense that there are people who are getting it very, very right who are not using ERP. There are people who are getting it very, very right who aren't talking about faith or spirituality in their treatment, etc. But I just start from that simplicity of the human side of things, which is the most important. So what in the world? I got a little guy here. What?
I'll do it too.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back to mommy. I'm going to finish my live stream, big guy.
I want to hear his definition of scrupulosity.
Okay, one quick question. Levi, what is your definition of scrupulosity?
Pink.
Pink. Okay. Yes. I think, yes, Katie loves that. All right, thank you. Go to mommy.
Any answer that has pink in it, I am like all about. So him and I are now best friends. That's fantastic.
I was thinking of you with the pink.
Thank you. And thank you for that, Justin. And just going back to, again, the human aspect. Oh my goodness. So important. Would love to go over Mubina or Johanna. Anything that you would like to share with the community around why these conversations are important?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I mean, I think just knowing that it's a similar vibe, but knowing you're not alone, right? Like, you're not the only person who has this. You're not the only person who's struggling. And I don't mean to say that in a guilting way. I mean to say that in a common humanity way, like Justin was saying, right? Like, we're like in this together, you know? And yeah, and you don't have to go through it all by yourself by any means. And yeah, and then, yeah, just focusing on, what you actually want out of yourself, out of your life, out of your faith, not what OCD's values are, but what your values are. And I mean, I work with, going back to some stuff earlier, I work with kind of some of the most severe cases in the country. In Canada, I'm at a residential level of care, and I've seen people do incredible things. And there's always hope if you're willing to take the leap. So,
yeah. Thank you, Johanna. It's, again, so important. I want folks to know there's so much hope wherever you are, and you are not alone. And you're right. It's not, I think it's not minimizing to say that. It's being able to say, we're with you kind of in this. I always tell folks, and this always, maybe sounds kind of strange, but I always say, you are so freaking special. Your OCD, not so much. Like, I always say, your OCD doesn't impress me that much, but you're really special and amazing and awesome. The OCD piece, every single person, we all say, this is different. This is the worst one. This is the worst possible intrusive thought under the sun. If you really knew what was in my brain, you would, like, we all feel like that. Like, that's not special, but you as a human, gosh, you're so special and you're so deserving of recovery and treatment and getting better and getting support. And I think that's really helpful for folks to hear, that no matter where you are, Johanna, like she said, see some of the most severe cases, that there's so much hope to get better and to reclaim that life that you were created to live. I was really shocked when I started going to therapy and realized that my therapist was not shocked by my intrusive thoughts. And my favorite thing in working as a chaplain who works on OCD cases is actually being able to not be shocked by people's intrusive thoughts. I actually often tell people, I will be so excited if you somehow shock me today. And it has yet to happen. But it's, yeah.
And that's part of the difference too between rapport and reassurance. I see a lot of folks will get caught in the assessment of things like that. Like, on one side, to go through 10 therapists and never select one is problematic. But then on the other side, a lot of people don't give themselves enough credits to try to vet somebody who they can connect with, not the least of which is not being shocked constantly. Like we're not here to expose people constantly to every fear, such as I don't respond to everything a client shares with, oh my goodness, I should call the cops. So like that might be really great ERP in any given moment. But anyway, I could totally do a little side note on that, but I think that rapport is huge in that human connection piece. I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm landing there tonight.
But I'm glad, and I want people to like that's kind of what this whole thing is about, right? Across religious traditions, and whether we're talking about clergy or talking about clinicians, talking about people with OCD, it's about humanity and connecting and helping people to live fulfilling lives. I mean, that's what this is about.
Well, that's true. And when I go to conferences, like the diversity of opinions, a lot of times we would not find ourselves in the same rooms with folks that when we go to a lot of the conferences that we go to. And that's a pretty special thing right there.
So special. Yeah, I think beyond this work with OCD, there's just a really beautiful bridge building that happens. And I think about that often actually with this work around faith and OCD too, just bridge building in terms of being human and connecting with others that we wouldn't always get to connect with. But Mubina, I want to make sure that I go to you too, and just any final things that you want to share with either faith leaders, clinicians, or folks with OCD on this topic tonight.
Yeah, I just, as usual, by the end of this, I'm feeling the feels, and I feel that I just want people to know they're not alone. There are resources. Recovery can look rocky. There can be ebbs and flows and ups and downs, but we're all carrying the hope. We're carrying the hope for you when it's hard to carry it for yourself. And know that there's so many resources for you. There are so many people working so hard behind all the scenes, trying to put resources out there. So join the community if you're able to. Put on these live streams and put on videos and podcasts about OCD if that's where you're at. And just know that recovery is in your path.
Thank you, Mubina. Recovery is in your path. For all of you who are listening with us tonight and who are watching later on, there's so much hope. And I'm feeling the feels tonight too. And I don't know, there's some live streams that just, I really feel this tonight. And I think, especially over the last week, I've had so many questions from folks who felt like they didn't deserve to get better, or like they couldn't engage in treatment because of their faith. And it's been one of those weeks that I want folks to know you really can. And I always go back to on a very personal level, if you would have asked me in 2018 or 2019, did I think I could get better? The answer would have been no. I don't even know that I thought I would have been here, to be honest. Like it was just, I was in such a dark place. And to be where I am now, I want folks to know it can get so much better no matter where you feel like you are in this moment.
Katie, I was wondering, can I make a comment about your picture you posted to Instagram in the cop car?
Yeah, I actually almost brought that up. And yeah, go ahead.
So in pink as well, I may steal your stories here. So part of why it's special with my son saying pink as the answer is that even Katie wearing pink, it is a giant exposure for her, which is now just part of her lifestyle, which is fabulous. And I commented on one of the pictures that she posted after running a half marathon, which for her is a warm up. If y'all don't know, she's an ultra marathoner, like ultra. And yeah, it's cool. She's trying to run all 50 states, raise support and awareness for OCD. Awesome. And it was really cool because the picture that was posted of her, there's a cop car with its lights on behind her. And the first thing I make some positive comment, and then I'm like, ooh, I have a chance to make another comment. And I said, it looks like they've come to bust you for your intrusive thoughts or something. And that to hear her story just 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, just absolutely different. And I didn't get to know you until starting the recovery journey, but that's the hope that we have. And those of you that think that you're too far, you can hear from somebody like Johanna, who is working actively in with clients who are experiencing some of the most severe and acute struggles. And I hope that you hear that. It's not just a few of us are in nice little cushy private practices and we always have these mild cases and blah, blah, blah. No, like if you've seen the highest numbers possible on the rating scales like the Y box, you have people either here tonight or in this community who work with that regularly, have worked with it, and see hope and are still in it to tell you there's hope, which is cool.
Thank you for sharing that, Justin, and thank you for the kind words too, because it really and yeah, pink for me, it started off as an exposure. For folks who don't know, I felt like I wore all black. I cut off all my hair, which is totally fine. But for me, that was not authentic to me. And I went through a period where, because I liked pink, I felt like I couldn't wear it. I wasn't allowed to wear anything that made me happy because my intrusive thoughts were too bad. And in treatment, it started as really an exposure color for me again. And it became an example for me each and every day that I can tell OCD that I'm not going to listen and that I'm going to do things that bring me joy anyway. But the funny thing is, even thinking just a few years ago, the photo that Justin was commenting on with the cop car, I'm so glad to have wonderful friends like Justin who know me and who think that immediately, because the first thing I thought when I saw that picture, I started laughing because I thought, if I would have gotten this race photo 6 years ago, I would have somehow thought that the police really were coming for me. And now I can see it as a really funny, humorous, awesome thing. And how cool is it in 5 or 6 years to be in such a different space with that? I mean, just so cool. So thank you, Justin. And I agree with Trevor. Justin is the best. We love Justin. We also love Mubina and Johanna, and just what a great discussion tonight. Thank y'all so much. And just want to, as we close out tonight, note that this is just one of many live streams. There are so many different ways to plug in and connect. There is so much hope. There are live streams going on all the time. You can find upcoming live streams at iocdf.org/live streams. Little sneak peek tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. There is an Ask the Experts with Chris Tronsonen. He is going to be talking about eating disorders, and I think going to have some members of the eating disorder SIG there, which will be awesome. And then Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, Chris Baer is going to be chatting with a group on supporting our families. So lots of really awesome stuff still coming up this week. We also always want to note that we have an IOCDF Faith and OCD special interest group that you can get involved with. We also have an IOCDF Faith and OCD resource page that many folks up here tonight worked on and are continuing to revise. But with all of these resources, the International OCD Foundation is a donor-supported nonprofit organization. So would always appreciate the support. And if you'd like to support future events and all of these things that we're talking about, you can consider donating at iocdf.org/donate. So thank y'all so much. Looking at the chat and just love even just the discussion and the joy and the supporting of one another and all of the things. It has been such a gift. And I hope that as we close, you hear us saying that there is help, there is hope, and you are so worthy of stepping toward the big, beautiful, awesome life you were created to live. See y'all next time.